Once again, coming about a month after it should have. This is our 2023 in review general chat video. We covered a number of our bests and worsts in the last video, so today we really wanted to focus on what we thought of 2023 as a whole. What we liked, what we didn't like, and some more in-depth talk about a couple of games in particular. So, to start off with, we spoke about the games that we enjoyed the most this year. This year, Ready or Not, a lot of the big improvements came towards the very end of the year, so we only got version 1 on December 13th. And while I have a lot to talk about in the next topic, there was a game that well and truly beat it out for most enjoyment. And it's very mainstream because it's Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate is a series that I've kind of missed out on a lot. I know there were 2 games before it, obviously, but I've also looked them up before because they are, I believe I'm correct in saying they're former BioWare games, and anything to do with BioWare I'm very interested in learning about. I've never played a CRPG before either. Closest I ever came was when Divinity Original Sin 2 was on sale, and someone I know tried to talk me into it because they turned themselves into a pyromaniac lizard, which is like, that's an interesting selling point. It was in beta. I wasn't one of the people that played the beta either, because at the time, I remember there was a lot of talks of like how rough it was for a beta. Full release, bought it day one after watching some of the reviews, and I've never looked back. I've pumped around 80 hours into it this year alone. In terms of RPG gameplay, it is by and far the best thing I've played since Skyrim. The level of choices, the dialogue quality, the voice actors are incredible. The cast deserve a load of credit. It's also the range of choices you can do, like the imagination that you, like people who play D&D a lot are gonna love this because you can do some hilariously crazy out there shit. I think I saw a video where someone managed to bypass an entire checkpoint by stacking boxes and using spells to teleport themselves to the top and then jump over using an arrow of transposition. It's that level of thought where developers really show that they care. And I think especially in modern gaming, seeing developers that give a crap is so rare that when it happens, you don't believe it. It's almost like it's too good to be true until you play it yourself. In terms of my experience with it, I've enjoyed playing the goody two-shoes because I'm one of those really weird people that never likes playing a bad guy in RPGs.
Yeah, me too. Fully paladin.
I have no bad runs in all of my 6 Mass Effect playthroughs. It won Game of the Year at the VGAs, which I'm going to talk about later as well. And it was universally, I don't think there's any argument that this year it outshone everybody else. And by a long, long margin. There was an argument that maybe Spider-Man 2 had done enough to secure something, but when you look at it, Spider-Man 2, and as much as I like it, it's a good game, it's enjoyable, it's it's got all the same qualities in terms of the acting and the presentation.
But just Spider-Man 1.
Yeah, it's more of Spider-Man 1, which isn't a bad thing. There's a few additions, but it doesn't beat a game that's been in development for God knows how long by a team who were not given all the funding in the world. So to see them put a load of big AAA developers in their place, including Bethesda, who have deserved their humbling this year by a long shot. Baldur's Gate is. I would recommend Baldur's Gate to everyone, regardless of whether they've played an RPG or not, because storytelling alone, it just wins.
So, Ready or Not is up there, but I'm going to let someone else have that as like their piece. So for me, it's either going to be Cold Waters or Forza Horizon 5. So I do like the racing games, don't play them all that often, but Forza is actually remarkably good amounts of fun. I like the fact that you can, if you go a bit wide on the corner and go through someone's fence, it doesn't penalise you too much. It just means that you can drive across the field instead if you want to cut that corner. And there's something quite satisfying doing that in like a McLaren, because you're like, this shouldn't work, and yet it sort of does. So that was fun. Runs great on the computer. Gorgeous graphics, like it looks phenomenal. The music's great, the atmosphere. It's a really good driving game where it's not really super like hard or
it's not a simulator.
It's not a sim racer. It's you can turn all the aids off and put it on hard, and it becomes quite a hard racing game. Or you can put the traction control on, set the AI to a little bit thick, and it becomes quite a bit of fun. So that's good. The other one I've had a lot of fun with, Cold Waters, which I don't think that many people play, to be honest. Came out a couple of years ago. It's a Cold War era naval tactical combat game. So I also play it with a massive mod called Dot Mod, which a guy on YouTube called Wolfpack got me into. He does loads of these like U-Boat Hunter and Cold Waters and Silent Run and all those ones. He's really good, way better than I am. And it adds surface vessels, it adds loads more submarines and features and all that stuff. So I've been playing that. So recently I've been doing the 1984 campaign in a Trafalgar class. And I've just started the South China Sea one, so I get a Sea Wolf. And that's fun because there's nothing more satisfying than trailing a Russian battle group and then shoving 8 Mark 48 AdCap torpedoes up Putin's arse. So,
I don't think it was Putin. When's this set?
No, you are right. It wasn't Putin. It's Cold War, so anyway. But there's nothing more satisfying than blowing up a Kirov-class battleship. And then having to deal with an Akula, whose primary... the Akulas basically went for the SR-71 Blackbird thing of if no one can hit us, then we can't be shot down. And the Akulas did that. They were like, well, we suck at stealth, so we'll just go really, really fast and outrun the torpedo. And it's really annoying when your torpedo gets to about like 300 meters off their back, and they detect you, and you just see the prop just go... and the submarine just drives off in that way, and your torpedo's like, oh. So yeah, it's a hard game, quite a steep learning curve. The manual tells you all the controls and tells you absolutely zero about how to do anything with that information. But fortunately, YouTube and Reddit are pretty good at that.
My favourite game of the year. I'm going to say something that none of you have ever heard of.
Shocker.
That's what I do in it. A game called Kiwi. Spelled Keyw. Yeah, I knew it. Keywe. This is because you've got family and friends who don't like to play split screen, but I have a wife who loves to play split screen.
Show off.
And really like... Yeah, I know.
What is this, 1990?
Yeah, my girlfriend likes it too. Anyway, and it's like casual. They call it cozy gaming, which is something that as a clan we don't do, but I do with my family. And it's like super fun, happy graphics, really bright, really airy. There's no peril whatsoever. You play as a kiwi, the bird, the flightless bird. And you basically hop around trying to fix things in this, like, you're in like a little 1930s telegraph station. And you're like hopping around. A bit like, what was that game for the PlayStation? Or it came out on everything. Stephen Fry narrated it. You played as like a little sock puppet thing.
Sackboy. Little Big Adventure.
Yes, Sackboy, which was from Little Big Planet.
Little Big Planet.
Yeah, basically, if you like Little Big Planet, it's like that, but like very good graphics and very short missions. Each one's less than 5 minutes long. So it's really good, especially if you've got kids for dropping in and out of it, because it's like 500 megabytes the entire game. So it loads up like in an instant, even on my quite old computer now. So it's really good. So the baby goes to sleep and we play like 4 missions really quickly. And then the baby wakes up. It's great fun. It's really easy to complete. It's not really easy to do well. It's a good learning curve. It's bright, it's colourful, it's friendly. It's very family friendly. So if you've got kids in the room or things like that, no one's dying and screaming and having their head blown off, cough ready or not. Yeah, it's great. And it's not like the most bought game in the world. According to Steam, it's only got 891 reviews, basically all of them positive. I paid like £8 for it, I think, in the sale, and I've played 7 hours according to Steam. My metric is always if I can get £1 per hour out of it, then it's been a worthwhile game. And there's a lot of AAA games that I have not had £1 an hour out of recently.
Yeah.
So I call that a massive win. And most importantly, this is the reason I'm selling it, is my wife likes it, which means that she sees gaming as a positive, which means I get to do more of it.
Right.
So Game of the Year is Kiwi.
I knew there was a button there.
Keywe.
So when I have to go looking for footage of it, then yeah, that's going to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I feel like I'm indebted to say Baldur's Gate because it's one of the games I've spent the most on this year. But it's probably not the game I've enjoyed the most this year. I've had a lot of fun playing Lethal Company, as brief as it has been that I've played it. I've added a load of mods, and I want to go back to it with XVI and play with all the mods. Because there are some really interesting mods that I think could be quite a lot of fun. But I added like the Mimic, the Skinwalker, the different costumes you can have. The things like there's a utility pouch essentially that you can add. So like it's you can put your light in your walkie-talkie and it doesn't take up inventory slots, which I think is really stupid. Like I see why they've done it that way, but it really annoys me. The Skinwalker is really cool. You've heard it, haven't you? The one that like it picks up your sound and then yeah. The update to Darktide, I've really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. But Baldur's Gate is such just like a fresh new thing. You know, like I've played games like it, sure, but nothing quite as detailed, and especially for this year. So yeah, I will say Baldur's Gate 3. I know I came into this thinking that I wouldn't say it, and then I ended up saying it. But hey, that's the nature of this thing. To be fair to everything all of the games this year, with a couple of exceptions, have been really good. This wasn't like we've had a couple of years where we've just had like proper bad games, or games that didn't live up to the hype, or games that were just like, we've had some years where it's just been like, yeah, okay. But this year there's been like a proper sort of, you know, you look at the awards for the Game Awards, and you've got like Alan Wake 2, you've got Baldur's Gate 3, you've got Spider-Man 2, and for some reason you've got Starfield. And I can't remember what else was nominated, but you look at these games and it's like, actually, there's like fair competition that one or like it could go either way. But of course Baldur's Gate won, because of course it did.
We then moved on to 2 games in particular that have had massive updates in the last year. Ready or Not and Darktide. The 2 games I pretty much invested in a gaming PC for. Ready or Not had its big 1.0 update, and Darktide had a huge overhaul mid-year. But how much of these updates actually changed the game? And have they actually helped them?
So I think the version 1 upgrade, or release rather, was good. I think overall it's a step in the right direction.
Explain which one you're talking about.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Right. We're going to pause here. This is where you cut the video,
Yeah.
okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Now give me the clappy sign again. Ready or Not, version 1.
Clap. Sorry, I have my microphone muted, but now I've said clap, so you can carry on.
Ready or Not, version 1. I think it's good. I think it is a step upgrade. It's an upgrade. It's a step in the right direction. Do I think the game's finished? Do I think the game's there? No. It's still got ways to go. But I think it's now in a state where it's got a better base to kind of go off. The things like the new police station, that's great. It's a lovely little place to walk around. It feels like you're actually in a police station, whereas the previous one very much felt like you were in a construction bit of the back room. Customization on the characters, like the outfits and stuff, that's all much better. I think that's pretty cool. As I've said previously, I think the weapon stuff could go much further. But again, it's nice they brought out some new guns. We've got now the Honey Badger, we've got a Supernova shotgun, a couple more 1911s. Like, I think all that's kind of getting there. Yeah, I think it's good overall. I do think it still needs mods generally to make it a more rounded game, because it definitely sometimes feels like you're fighting like SEAL Team 6 on like 16 kilos of Adderall and like 92 Red Bulls, because you make a one sound and it's like all these people in the map just go and all of a sudden you're getting shot from like 17 different angles, including from angles that aren't even in the map. And that occasionally does get a little bit tedious. But I think it's one of those, we play as a team, we gas rooms, we flashbang them well. When we're working as a squad, it really works, and it is satisfying. So yeah, I think it's good.
And Darktide, or you just want to skip over that for you?
Okay, Darktide. So I'm going to be a bit probably the black sheep of this one. While I think the update was good, I don't think it made that much difference. The customization was nice to get a bit more. You can do extra stuff to your character. That's always good. But when they were talking about, we've added all these new missions, to me, I couldn't see any of that. All the missions are, go to this place, kill this guy, put a data interrogator on that thing, extract. And to me, they all seem to be absolutely identical in that respect. Not to say that it isn't fun sometimes, playing as that giant Ogrin, that is eminently satisfying to run through 50 people on a bridge, knock them all off the bridge, and then get shouted at by you two because you can't shoot anyone because my big fat ass is in the way. That's fun. But after doing like 6 of the same missions, it does feel a bit like, ugh, what's the point? And then you come back and it just doesn't seem to mean anything. I think they've added more cutscenes and stuff, which again, I will be honest, I have skipped a lot of them because I'm not really that into the whole lore. So it is probable that I'm missing a lot of the stuff they've added. So is it nice? Yeah, seems like a good update. Do I think it's made a huge difference? Not particularly.
I'm in. Yeah, so ready or not, what do I think of the version 1 update? I think that as a multiplayer user, fundamentally, it hasn't changed anything I do. Controversial, I suspect. I think if you're playing single player, as in on your own with AI teammates, it's taken the game from like 20% completed to like 80% completed. So I think from a single player perspective, the update's massive. And the fundamental change they made is that the AI for your teammates is now passably good. It's definitely now better than it was in SWAT 4. It's probably still not quite there, but there's just a little bit of work to do, and I think it will be. For multiplayer, I would argue it hasn't really done anything at all. We've got sort of 3-4 new maps, but we've lost 2 of the old maps. And because they've upgraded to 1.0, obviously all the modded maps are now broken, of which there were probably 100. So overall, the map count has dropped considerably. Now, it's hard to say that's their fault, because that's what happens when you do big upgrades, but it's something you've got to take into account. It doesn't mean it's not true. And part of the reason for that is they had promised regular updates and instead just went for one big one. So the fact that that modding community had to make all those maps, nevertheless, lies with the developers. They also seem to... Now, I don't really know what they did with the AI. It feels like when the game very first came out, the AI was unbelievably good. And there's lots of videos you can watch on YouTube of the AI aimbotting and wall hacking. And, it could see you through multiple walls. And that got better and better and better and better until pre-1.0, where actually the AI was really quite good. Quite fair, quite reasonable. And 1 seems to have rolled all of those changes back, and it feels like it's back at the alpha stage when the AI was absolutely shocking. I would say that without a mod for enemy AI, and the 2 we use is No Crack for AI or Gunpowder, both slightly different but kind of broadly do the same thing. I would say without those mods, the enemy AI is it's shocking. It's like almost unplayable. I don't mind a hard game. In fact, I want the game to be hard, and I think everyone who plays the game wants it to be hard. I just want it to be fair. I don't want it to cheat, and at the moment the AI cheats, and that's not fun. The real big shame, though, I think, is that they've taken away a lot of the mission customization. So you used to be able to select different mission modes, and the assumption was that was going to stay. It doesn't feel like that would be a hard thing to code. Maybe it is. And that's gone, and that's a shame, because I think that makes the missions a lot less replayable. In terms of Darktide, I really like Darktide, but despite really liking it, I actually agree with Moose that It hasn't lived up to my expectations yet. I think it might do. I think it's slightly unfair because I started playing Vermintide like 6 years after it was released, when all the DLC was out and all the extra stuff. And perhaps it was like this when it was first released. But I tend to agree. It actually feels like there's less mission variety than there was on Vermintide. And I think because... it's a bit repetitive. In fact, it's very repetitive. And that's a shame because actually, unlike Moose, I actually love Warhammer, and I listen to the audiobooks, I read the books. I'm not a millionaire, so I don't play the tabletop game. You know, I can barely afford this computer, let alone Warhammer. Jesus, I have to sell my house. Don't sue me, Games Workshop. But I love it, and despite all that, like when I started playing I was like, God, this is beautiful, and I'd literally like walk through the maps looking at everything, but like once you've done that a few times you're pretty much done, and then the maps are pretty samey. And I think especially the way they've designed the class system means that once you've started leveling up one character, that you are disenchanted or disenfranchised to want to change to a different one, which means you kind of just play the same role over and over and over and over and over again. Which I think is a shame, especially if you're playing with friends, because obviously they'll be leveling up a single character. So that like if you're all level 9 or 10 people, like I don't want to go back to being level 1. I'll just get battered. So anyway, it is what it is. I think it's got a way to go.
I think both games' big updates have suffered from the attempt of consolidating what they've already done, but at the same time making compromises on our expectations and probably what they have an overall plan. I'm going to be critical more of Darktide because honestly, while I do agree in terms of the multiplayer thing, Ready or Not hasn't been unchanged. I do play the single player a lot because SWAT 4, I loved going through that campaign, and I can back up that the AI for the teammates has been radically improved. The commander mode, especially, where you have to monitor the team's mental status as well. You have to sub people in and out if they get injured. If they die, that's it. They're gone completely from the team. If they have a mental breakdown, you have to send them to therapy for it, and they're out for a certain amount of time, certain amount of missions. If they are, if they're really content and they go on a couple of good missions, they unlock extra bonuses. So one guy can be the guy who helps everybody's aim properly. Another guy helps people with fatigue. Another people helps with injuries. There's specific roles for people to search under beds and in cupboards. You know, it's kind of like a weird way. It's like a SWAT sim management, the commander mode. And while it's not something that I was particularly interested for, I think I was more interested in a more coherent story, the kind of crescendo to a big, finale kind of thing. But it's not an action movie. It's not like Call of Duty. It's a SWAT game. So missions that are sort of connected via like in-world lore and stuff, that makes sense. I agree that some of the game modes being taken out, and that every map is its own game mode in that respect. It was a bit of a weird decision, but I'd argue the maps themselves are the best version of those maps, with the exception probably being the medical center. That one is big.
So large.
It is. I think when we did it,
so big.
Phrasing.
when we did
It's probably 4 times the size it actually should be for a 4-man team.
Like, I appreciate the fact you can start at either end of that center. It does not matter. It's a labyrinth. When you actually look at the map and you retrace your steps through, it is a very well funneled labyrinth, if that makes sense. But you don't feel it at the time. At the time, you're like, I have no idea where I am. And maybe that's a problem with us, or maybe it's a problem with the level. It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really want to place blame on one person or the other. I'd argue that the main objective of version 1.0 was to get all the lessons they've learned throughout the development and have a really solid base. So stuff like scaling enemy count and stuff like that can come in later. The important thing was to get the game completed at this stage done. Get it out the door on public sale. I think that was the main bit. My thoughts on Darktide. Every time I think about where Darktide has gone wrong is when you directly compare it to Vermintide 2, which is why we were so excited about Darktide in the first place, the main difference is Vermintide 2 had a very well-structured campaign that had a start and an end point, and then they added bits on like side stories afterwards. Darktide's main problem is that it feels like a loose collection of missions that you just select at your own whim. There's no structure, there's no pacing to it, there's no start and end point. And you can put in as many cutscenes that pop up every 5 or so levels to make it look like there's a plot. There is not a plot. It's hiding itself as a live service game. It's trying to hide itself as a live service, but it is a live service game. The new level that has been brought in, where it's supposed to be in the Warhammer 40,000 version of an entertainment district, sounds great, but we have never actually had it in the rotation yet. I will say, even the best games in this format have that thing where, when you boil it down, it is all repetitive. It is start location, kill a bunch of stuff, do a couple of side stuff, get to the end, the extract point. Left 4 Dead is exactly the same. The difference is you care about the story and the characters. Vermintide 2 had set characters with their backgrounds and their own motivations. Darktide is, the whole point is, well, it's you're the reject. Like, okay, my background is a couple of choices based on the planet I'm from and my background. And everything around, the 40k universe works. Like, it looks like we expected it to. All the weapons are great. It just doesn't feel complete. There's no... If they just had a version where it was like, okay, we've got your story mission going from when you get out, you join this the Inquisitor's fleet, and you have, these are the missions you do in order, and this is a conclusion, and then maybe we'll add some more stuff afterwards, like a stage 2 of the invasion. The fact, in terms of bosses, all we've really had are corrupted guardsmen captains. There's so much more. You could do a Space Marine boss battle that takes the entire map because you have to whittle this guy down. Like, imagine us fighting a Chaos Space Marine. I know Snake and Greasy are going to know what I'm talking about when I say that. That would be 30 minutes of breaking it down into stages. Because Chaos Space Marines compared to regular guardsmen are terrifying in-game. I just don't think they have that motivation to do it. It was when the store for the cosmetics was fully operational when the game wouldn't play properly. That right there is a massive red flag.
I can't really comment on the Ready or Not update because I played it once since its release, since its actual 1.0 release. So I can't really comment on that. Darktide, however, I played the shit out of that game in the past couple of months since its big 2.0 update. The skill trees and the level of customization that there is now in comparison to 1.0 is vastly superior. That you can have like different builds, and it tells you the builds as you're about to go in, and you can plan and you can adjust, and it's so cool to be able to play the Ogryn in 3 different styles, or like a couple of different styles depending on how you want to do it. So if you want to go with like big heavy Ogryn that has big machine gun, you absolutely can. I quite like the tank Ogryn, where like it draws all of the combatants to him. So you get your shield, you go, right, everyone, you're all shit, come fight me, and then just stand behind the shield and just wait until somebody else kills them. I love that. I love the amount of work that they've put in. It's a proper labour of love that Fat Shark have put into Darktide. My only gripe with Fat Shark is the customizations are shit in terms of the appearance stuff, the cosmetics. That's what I'm saying. The cosmetics. Like, they bring out a new set of cosmetics, and they're not cheap. They're not cheap. They're quite expensive. But I looked at the Krieg ones that they brought out, and I was like, great, okay, I'll get this Krieg one now for the sharpshooter, and then I'll get the other Krieg ones when next month after. Nope, can't get them anymore. And I'm like, that's really fucking dumb, because now you've just lost out on some money that I would have otherwise spent there's no like license to it, so I don't understand why they've cycled out the the cosmetics like that. That said, it's still an awesome game. I've been really enjoying playing it, and I love how much they've improved it, and I can't wait to see what they keep doing with it. So they've brought out the second part of that carnival mission. So you've got the two parts of the carnival mission. He can't, either one of those siblings can jump in. It's happened to me once. It might only happen on harder difficulties, but it should happen on the easier difficulties as well. But there's now a mission, like a special mission, where you can go after them, and it's like a very long boss fight, essentially. That's quite cool. That's really good.
We then discussed GTA 6. With the reveal trailer coming just towards the end of 2023, there's quite a lot of speculation about what the final product is going to be. And Lord knows we've probably got a whole year to bloody wait for it again. However, everyone has opinions, and ours are just as stupid as everybody else's, so I wanted to know, what feature did the members of Wildcard want to see in the next game?
So I'm actually going to... Quick thing, I'm going to give 2 features. One, I would like it to come out on PC in 2025, when it gets released for everything else. And because that isn't going to happen, my second feature is, I would think, an honor system similar to Red Dead 2. I think that could be somewhat interesting, because it's not something we've ever really had in GTA, to the best of my knowledge. How exactly it would work, I'm not entirely sure. But I think it could be kind of cool to have, like we say, similar to Red Dead. So if you go on a good playthrough, you'll get some type of rewards, whether you end up getting like monetary rewards, whether you get access to better quality housing, for example, or better quality cars or something like that, potentially. Potentially you're a bit less likely to get, if you do accidentally on purpose run Doris, age 94, over with a tank, the police kind of go, well, we'll give him another 5 minutes. It was probably an accident. Maybe he didn't get the rear parking sensor pack with the tank. And, you get a little bit more leeway. But also on some missions, you'll have an option to, you can walk in through the front of the FIB building because, you're not Osama bin Laden, essentially. I think something like that could be kind of cool. And like vice versa, if you go for the negative playthrough, and you murder every living human being in sight that you possibly see, you get restricted from, the really nice penthouses. But on the other hand, you get the ability to buy all the houses in the kind of slums. You make much better friends with the drug dealers, with the underground weapon network people. So actually you get access to way better weaponry much earlier on. You obviously then if you commit a crime, the police are on you, really, really quickly. But you've got a load of criminal contacts who you can, you end up with way more like a pay and spray locations to access because you've got that criminal network already embedded. So I think something like that could be pretty cool because it could give you options as to how to play it. Also, not that GTA, in my opinion, has ever really suffered with replayability because there are so many missions. But the ability to do like a good playthrough, a bad, and a negative, and like a neutral, I think would be interesting. Okay. Potentially you end up with different pathways on certain missions depending on if you're good or bad. Like I say, if you're breaking into the FBI, if you're playing as a good character, you can go in through the front door. Yes, very much R.I.P. If you're playing as a good character, you'll get on with the visitor tour or something, and that's how you get in. Whereas if you are criminal number 1, then you can't go in the front door because you'll get arrested. So you end up having to break in, through the air conditioning ducts as your crew or something. I think that'd be kind of cool because it's the same mission but 2 different ways. And 5 did that a little bit in that when you're doing the big heists, you had the ability to plan and kind of do different things. So I think an expanse on that could be pretty cool.
2 things. One, I like the idea of an honor system, but very specifically, they introduced it a tiny bit online, but frankly I always thought it was rubbish, was the anti-griefing system from multiplayer. But it was always rubbish. Like always rubbish. You were griefed relentlessly and constantly, and in the end that was probably, apart from the fact that the loading times on PS4 were 25 minutes, Like honestly, I'd go and make a roast dinner whilst the game was loading, and if it crashed, like that was usually the decision to stop playing the game because you didn't have the energy to reload it. But other than that, like the griefing was really frustrating, especially when they started introducing what were like game-breaking vehicles. So originally you just had the tank, and the tank was fine because it wasn't very fast and you could just drive away from it. As soon as they had like rocket jet bikes, and then you got you joined the bike club, which gave you infinite respawns of your rocket jet bike. And if you griefed someone and they destroyed your rocket jet bike, it cost them hundreds of thousands of game dollars. So it was actually quite hard to fight back, which I thought was deeply frustrating. So I think an honor system, but like use it as an anti-griefing system. So I would say like every time you're online, you maybe get 2-player kills, and that's okay. That sort of stays as neutral. And every time you go above that, you lose 10 honor. When you're at -20, you're pushed into a negative honor server. When you're at -50, you're pushed into a deep... So you have like tiered servers, so that all the -100 people are all together, and all the +100 people are all together. And then the griefers can grief each other, and the rest of us can just enjoy the game. Every now and then it's fun to kill a player, and that's why I think you should get 2 for free, but I think it should just be 2. or 1, something like that. But whatever. Mistakes happen, you just run people over sometimes, don't you? GTA. But actually, other than that, the most important thing is clean up the UI. Like, I've never played a game with such a bad UI. Like, it was like appalling to the point that like you wondered if it was a joke. Like, were they making it deliberately bad to like slow you down or something? I don't know. But like having to do things on your mobile phone that was like this big, like it was like down in the corner of the screen, like here, wasn't it? You were like, God, what am I trying to do? Like, you had to like phone someone to get something to do. Like, that was fun in single player. I get it. It's like thematic, isn't it? But in multiplayer, just give me like a normal, like an options wheel. Or wheels work well, don't they? And, by the time GTA 6 comes out, we'll probably all be using head tracking. So a wheel's really easy. Quite a few other games I play use head tracking with wheels, and you can just like flick your head whichever way you want the wheel to go. Works brilliantly. But yeah, please make the UI less terrible. Like, it was when you were trying to do some things, especially like setting up missions. Oh God, just like anyone who's played the game knows how bad the UI is. I don't need to explain it any further. Please, God, just please clean it up. Make it easy to navigate and make it simple. And it was none of those things.
Like you guys, I also have more than one feature to talk about. One's a bit more serious than the other. So the less serious one is, I noticed from the reveal trailer there's a lot of social media style stuff at the end. So like there were a lot of Instagram or their version of whatever Facebook is videos. I would kind of like that to lead into the single player, where you had to build up your fame as like this crime duo, like Bonnie and Clyde, a modern version of that, where to reach people in the local community and like get them on side, you film yourself doing this stuff. I think it'd be a very interesting way, or at the very least, I'd like social media and the wider internet in the game to play more of a role than it did in 5, because there were some missions in 5 where you got to, you were using the stock market to you were affecting it.
It was the assassination missions. Yeah. You could buy all the stocks, then assassinate someone to cause the stock price to either jump up or crash, and then do it that way. Yeah.
But I always felt that there wasn't a lot to do, so there's a lot of placeholder style websites to go on. So it'd be very. I think with the more power behind it, there's a opportunity to make that a more something that you can explore a lot more. I think
that's a really cool idea.
The more serious one I have is a lot down to Take-Two, especially the publisher, the way they've treated GTA 5's player base. I am very worried that the campaign we're going to get in GTA 6 is not going to be good enough. I have a very serious concern that all of the resources, all the time, all the effort is going to be put into the online because it's made that much money. And I do not want to play a 5-hour campaign and then be said, continue your story in GTA Online as nameless or faceless bastard number 4. No. I want a proper size campaign, maybe even more than GTA 5 length, Red Dead 2 length. You've kept us waiting for 12 fucking years. It'll be 13 by the time it comes out.
It's longer than that. It's 13 years now it came out.
If you try and dick us around by giving us a campaign that is the afterthought in a GTA game, which is inexcusable, because you want to make all your money to make GTA 7, which will take another half decade or more, it's why I'm excited. I was really excited. I stayed up to watch the reveal trailer, but then there was a part of me in the back of my head that was like, Take-Two have been dickheads. You introduced a virtual casino in your online mode. That's how much of money-grabbing shits they are. They make EA look moral in comparison. That's tricky. The campaign we've learned so far about this Bonnie and Clyde style duo, trying to make enough money to get out, and the possibilities for a proper Vice City and surrounding area, like the swamp levels, are going to be hilarious. Hopefully, you can make so many Florida Man jokes in all this. I just want a campaign that's got enough length and enough legs to tide me over for at least the amount of time I spent on Baldur's Gate 3. Or at the very least, GTA 5. I do not want an afterthought as a campaign mode in a GTA game, because I'm there more for the campaign than I am the online. The online was fun. Don't get me wrong. We had a lot of fun in GTA Online.
We did.
But the campaign in 5 was great. I say the campaign in 4 was also really good, if the gameplay didn't really live up to it.
A lot of my issues with GTA 5 Online was free roaming was a nightmare, because the player base could be really toxic. Now, I know that you can turn on passive mode and whatever, but it just wasn't like a nice place to be. The missions are fine, the game modes are fine, but the actual free play mode, if you just wanted to drive down the street, you had some cunt flying around on a fucking rocket bike, or a plane, or a helicopter, or something else, and all you want to do is just go from A to B. But they just made it annoying. And that's one of the things I would like to do. A feature I would like to see is either griefers get put in their own server and locked there to rot, or passive, or maybe like a private server mode where it's just you invite in who you want to be in that server, rather than because we used to try and join just empty servers, or try and find an empty server. We'd all jump into the game and be like, oh, mine's got 3 people in it, so we'd all go and join into that one. Private servers or some sort of separation or something like that would be ideal. It would stop you getting griefed all the time. You could actually have fun in an online environment without people interfering. But if you want that, fine. But I would prefer the option of having privacy to play online with my friends and not play online with a bunch of assholes and 13-year-olds.
And finally, because we all like to end on, mild-inducing rage, we talked about what has annoyed us this year.
The most commonly used CPUs, GPUs, etc. is all very common knowledge. The Steam charts are there for anyone to look at. I'm quite lucky that I've got an all-right computer. My processor's pretty old, it's 3600, but I've got I've got a new graphics card, 7800X, which is really good. Which technically puts me sort of slightly ahead of the curve of your average gamer. But that's by the by. The reality is all that information is freely available. So why does it seem that not a single game manufacturer looks at any of that? Because honestly, I've never had a year where there has been so many shockingly badly optimized games.
Skyline? for one example?
City Skyline is a great example. Absolutely terrible. I mean, Starfield, another one. Yeah. Never has there been a year with such poorly optimized games. It's like they just stopped bothering. They're just like, yeah, whatever, it'll do. And if you look at like the average equipment required to run a lot of these games at even like quite moderately good levels, it's pretty extraordinary. Well beyond what most people can manage. Now, don't get me wrong, it's lovely. You see the trailer and you're like, oh my god, aren't the graphics so good? But actually, if those graphics are unattainable, even for people with exceptionally good hardware, then it doesn't matter. It's all just a waste of time, isn't it? And I think we might have, and I'm saying this as someone who's just bought a new graphics card, I think we might have gone a bit too far down the let's spend all our time and money on graphics route. And maybe, as you were saying with GTA, possibly not spending quite enough time on making a game that works really well, making a game that's well optimized, irrelevant of your system, making a game that's fun to play and that you want to come back to, making a game that you don't have to stay connected to the internet all the time for. That is just absolutely so annoying. It is enough to stop me buying almost any game that has continual internet requirements. I live in an area that doesn't have great internet, and the internet does go down probably at least once a day. And so a game that has to stay connected to the internet is no good to me. I also like playing on my laptop. Obviously, I don't play posh AAA games on my laptop. But yeah, the poor optimization this year has been like quite stunning. And I've been a computer gamer for 12 years now, was when I built my first PC. And this is my third since then. So I rebuild about every 4 years. And this is now 3 years old. So I'm getting the itch again. In fact, I got PC Part Picker open on my other monitor.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
It was open previously. In fact, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 tabs for different PC parts open. Yeah, it is what it is, isn't it?
Was it this year, the Arkham Knight thing completely... I think that might be the worst example so far.
Yeah, and I just don't know. I don't know what's changed. I don't know what's happened. But it just seems to be a very, very bad year for well-optimized games. And Ready or Not as well. I mean, Ready or Not, we've been lucky that we've not been hit by too many graphical problems. But I know when they very first dropped 1.0, I was getting like 20 FPS on a 7800X, which is a 4080 equivalent roughly. But it seemed to be totally random. And there are a few kind of fixes out there, but they involve like going into your system, into your C drive and deleting folders and stuff. I should not have to do that to make a game work.
So mine is very personal in that E3 is dead. And I'm really sad about that. I think E3 was the only way we could properly hold developers and hardware guys to real account. And I can explain why. So at the time, when E3 was at its peak, it wasn't down to the organizers to, give the developers and all like the big companies a leg up. It was the organizers of E3 saying, hey, if you want to show off your stuff, you got to do it here because this is the biggest stage you're going to have for the entire financial year. And if you screw up, we ain't going to make, apologies for you. It's on you. It's not controlled by the people who are showing off. They get immediate feedback, and they really have to bring out the best they've got in order to show off. What we have now are a bunch of individual shows spread out amongst the year where it's streamed. There's no live audience reaction anymore, where people can gauge a response kind of thing. So if someone boos them out of the building, you're not going to see that anymore. EA's live event, and they're the ones that started this because they're the first ones who pulled out of E3 saying we want to do our own event on the same weekend because we don't like E3. The reason they don't like
spotlight on us.
Yeah, the reason they didn't like E3 is because A, they had to share the spotlight with infinitely better companies, and B, they weren't very popular. This was just after Star Wars Battlefront had come out and people had realized this is terrible. What have you done? I wanted to go to an E3. Well, that was one of my life's bucket list thing. I wanted to go to an E3 and just be there as a fan. And that's never going to happen. And as a replacement, we've got a bunch of these manufactured and really badly controlled, company events, or the VGAs, which claims it's an award show, but will rush through categories, including best racing game, best independent game. It will, a bunch of awards that you want some reference, you want some respect given. They'll rush through them because they have a world premiere to give off, and even then, the world premieres this year weren't that good. We didn't get GTA 6 at the VGAs, which everyone was expecting. We didn't get anything that really wowed people. I think the best thing we had out of this year's VGAs was possibly the God of War Ragnarok DLC, because that no one had expected that, but everything else had kind of been leaked already. Or people like saying, I don't want this. So losing E3 as a proper stage where industry leaders have to come and sell themselves and do it in front of a not happy, not a crowd that's not going to be immediately on their side,
and not scripted audience.
There's a part of me that's also really going to miss the Ubisoft conferences because they were peak cringe.
Right now, I hope that's cool. If I'm talking and now people are screaming, awesome. Oh, all right. It's attractive people running around.
Hold on, Joe. The Blue Sharks.
We're all...
Take the lead.
Jeez.
Look out. Heads up.
Just gonna hide.
A lot of people were saying that E3 wasn't really relevant anymore. I think it's more relevant now than it's ever been, because in an industry that relies so much on reputation selling games and, not a lot of... I can't even think of... I'm thinking of the word responsibility on them to really deliver. It feels like we need a proper trade show where all of the world's press are on them with a big magnifying glass saying, what have you got?
Developers going, you will like this because we've told you that you will like this. And our accountants have done the Excel sheet, and the Excel sheet says you'll like this. It's the 2042 thing all over again. It's the, hey, everyone else is doing this, we can do this too, that you can't. Payday 3, Payday 2, we love Payday 2, it's a great game. Getting a bit long in the tooth now. Payday 3 came out, obviously everyone was like, yeah, this will be great. And, I mean, it might have been a good game, but nobody could play it for the first 72 hours because they put one server online running Microsoft Vista on about 512 megabytes of RAM. And no one could play it. And then once you did manage to get into it, you were like, oh, that was an alright mission. It then kicked you back to the server browser. Well, there isn't a server browser. You can't play on your own. You're online only all the time. You couldn't stay in the same server. The servers didn't even work. The armor system's trash. Honestly, Payday 3 is just such a disappointment. And that's not the only game it's happened to. There's been loads of games that have come out on a lot of hype, and people are like, why? Just take your time, just make a good game, and people will buy it, rather than the accountants going, well, yes, as you can see here, I think these gamers today will definitely like this type of game, so we'll put this out here, and then by 1,600 hours on that day, we should have enough credit card data to buy this, and people are going, shit. That's what's really driven me off the thing, is a load of... And big AAA studios have gone, yeah, well, you'll buy it because it's us. It's a bit like Ferrari putting out a new car and going, well, you'll like it because it's a Ferrari. And it's like, yes, but it drives like a heap of shit. Yeah, but it's a Ferrari. It doesn't matter if it's a Ferrari or not. If it's a shit car, and it doesn't matter what badge is on the front. If it's an awful car, it's an awful car. It doesn't matter if it's a Ferrari or a Peugeot or a Tesla or whatever. So I think that's why Baldur's Gate did so well, because the developers put out a game that they'd put time and effort into, that they didn't try and force people to like. They just said, look, here's our game. People liked it. It did really well. It won the VGAs and everything else. And you had all these other people going, yeah, but we put out a game and we put it out on, the metrics said that you should have liked it. I was like, that's really irked me this year, is just sort of big studios resting on their laurels going, yeah, well, of course you'll like it. We put it out.
The thing that annoyed me about gaming this year is that I haven't had enough time to do it. Because of my job, I travel all around the country, so I don't necessarily have good internet, and I'm very sort of starved for time. And the games that have come out this year have been like big epic games that demand your time, and I'm like, I get maybe like 2 hours an evening to actually play a video game. The only reason I've played Baldur's Gate as much as I have is because I've been playing it on stream with a couple of friends of mine, and we're playing like Faerun's biggest assholes, right? We're doing a consequences be damned, oh no, our consequences kind of run. But that's where most of my playtime's actually gone. I haven't even finished Baldur's Gate 3. I have no idea how it ends. I legitimately don't know. I haven't reached Act 3 with either of my characters that I'm playing. I'm playing a rogue and a paladin at the moment. But I suppose that's kind of the thing that's annoyed me the most is like, it's a purely selfish annoying thing. It's purely selfish. But people talking about the game, I then have to go, actually, I need to go away because I can't, like, I don't want to spoil it. Like Alan Wake 2. I've been playing that. I'm on the last mission, last chapter, last episode, whatever it's called. I haven't finished it. I have no idea how it ends. And there's a couple of friends of mine on stream that have been playing it, and I'm like, sorry, I need to head out because I don't want to spoil it. I know it's a very selfish thing, but it's one of those, like, it's more a problem with the internet, with problem with games and social media in general, that if you're not like on the pulse of what's going on in the game, you have to leave social media, because otherwise you'll get it spoiled for you. You get it ruined for you.
And that was our 2023 in 4 questions or less. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again with the next video whenever I get round to doing it.